Okay. All right. We are live and in effect. Welcome
Right.
to the Remedy Report, y'all. This is your host, Giselle the She-Boss, also known as Boss Selena. All right. And today I have the infamous Tobias Bay in the building. One time, got to raise the roof. I'm so excited. Tobias is here representing the Nomadic Elevation Group. And today we're going to be talking about some of my favorite topics: business bonding, insurance, notary services, business trust, and some other creative financial strategies as well. And if time provides, we might get a little deeper into some other subjects. So, Tobias, before we get started in the topics that we're discussing today, I'm just going to give you the floor and give you the opportunity to kind of introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about where you're from, your upbringing a little bit. Give us a little back history on how you kind of came up, a little bit about your life, and how you actually end up getting started in the business lane.
I started in the business lane. I'm from Sacramento, California, to start there.
Okay.
Grew up in a good family, 4 brothers, 4 sisters. It was 8 of us total, I should say. My oldest brother was the one who kind of introduced me to business. That's my partner. We hustle together, been hustling since I was 16 years old. And he was in Citigroup, Travelers, Primerica, stuff like that. So I used to tag along with him in high school. Kept me out of trouble, kept me off the street. And I ended up getting a financial education starting there. We then bought our first home. I think I was 20, 21. We bought our first home in Oak Park, California. And we flipped that. And then we ended up getting into real estate. And I got my notary license at the same time. And a gentleman named Isaiah Brown, I was working at a school and I helped start a emotionally disturbed program for children. It was one of the first classrooms in a Grant school district. And he was a substitute teacher, went to the wrong school. And I taught the class that day. And he liked the way that I worked with the kids and everything. And asked me, did I know anything? He saw I was studying to become a notary. This is aside from the real estate stuff.
Okay.
He decided to take me out and ask me, did I know what loan signings and stuff were? And I was like, nah, but he said, well, give me a call when you get your notary license. So he actually took me out and trained me. I made, I think, like $3,000 my first month, and it was on from there. He actually told me how to set up the business and everything. So I was doing that, real estate, and going to school, and it took off. And I've been doing like the notary and the business thing ever since. And it's kind of grown and blossomed. And I've learned a lot over the years, along with my brother. We still to this day study. That's why I get into like securities and PPMs and stuff, which we'll talk about after the notary stuff. It's a great way to generate income, so you can get into some other stuff. Solid business. So I did music. I've had like a wealth of stuff that I've done. So as we go along, if I can remember stuff and it relates, I'll say it. But
okay.
Yeah, I had a pretty dope life. I got good people around me.
So let me ask you about the real estate. Now, when you say you got your first house at 20 or 21, did you buy a personal house, or was this a purchase for a business, through a business? Was it a fix and flip? Give us a little bit of information, like details about how did you get into real estate and what lane of real estate did you actually pursue?
Well, my pops did remodels. So we were across the street remodeling the house, and a gentleman pulled up. He was having I don't know if anybody knows where Oak Park is. If you guys listen to rap music, Mozzie represents Oak Park heavy. Okay. It's not the type of area where you drop off refrigerators and stuff to have installed. So he actually came down and the limo pulled up, and they were stealing his stuff. As soon as the delivery dude left, they were stealing all the refrigerators and the dishwashers and the flooring and everything. And he asked us, did we want to buy the property? And my brother said, yeah. And we went in from there. So my dad he's done that for years. That was kind of his business that he did. He's always been in the business. So I guess it comes from my dad as well.
Okay. So you and your brother kind of joined in with your dad, or following your dad's footsteps in the real estate. And when y'all got that first house, did you how did that go? Did you rent it out? What did you do with it?
We did everything with it. That was when the market was going up. So I think we got it for like $52,000. It had doubled and tripled. This is when that first run started. And I think the early 2000s, where the real estate just started shooting up. And man, that kind of supplied us going to get more real estate. So we were refinancing that and then going to get another property and then playing it back and forth. And it was paying off on our credit. So it looked like we had a bunch of houses paid off on our credit because we were refinancing and we were using that with the business credit.
Okay. So when y'all purchased that first property, you purchased it through a business, or did y'all did you purchase it in your personal, identity? Did you eventually transfer it over to a business, or how did you how did you get into the business of real estate once you got that first house?
We didn't know about that necessarily when we first started. I learned about that after I met G Boogie. I'm a part of G Boogie America. You guys can go look that up. That's where I learned my business credit information at. And he kind of enlightened us on, putting stuff in trust and using it for business credit and leverage. So I learned a lot with him too. I just talked to him the other day, as a matter of fact. When you look the dude up, he's gonna look like a regular dude. He's it was a trip meeting him because my brother was like, "It's this dude with some gold teeth from New York on here giving away the game." And I was like, "Man," I looked at the picture. He had a white tee on, and I was like, "Man, you know what I'm saying?" And I was like, "Wait a minute." He's telling you how to do it for free because we were paying, to go to all of these the Mylans and all
seminars
that
and stuff.
Seminars, and he was giving it away for free right on there. So I hit him up and he hit me back and he scooped me up. And that's a whole nother show. We can talk about the G Boogie, that experience. But
So he kind of took
that's
you up on
really,
his wing.
yeah, we started a whole thing.
And
So
is
a
that
lot of
what
the
you learned
information,
business? I'm sorry, is that what you learned or learned about business credit and personal credit from him?
yeah,
Okay.
we were kind of already on track because we were doing personal credit repair already. But he took it to another level. Like he put it all together for us and showed us like how it worked because he had been doing it for years. So he's a lot of my successes to him too. Like I said, I've had good people around me. I don't know who's blessing me, but I hope they keep the blessings coming.
So okay, let me ask you something. What can you tell us about what you learned about how to leverage your personal and business credit in some of your business dealings, as far as like,
So
using it to purchase assets and things of that nature, or like when your credit drops, you know what I'm saying? How do you get your credit back in good standing so that you're able to keep going and purchasing new assets? Because I know like when you apply for stuff, your credit score can go up and down. So I know some people are not, familiar with how that works. Tell us a little bit about that.
yeah, anything good or bad that hit your credit is going to affect it. To
Mhm.
start there, just so people understand that. But I'll take you through. I call it the Trinity. This is like our little program that we have, and I like to teach people because I don't know where people are at. I teach them like
Mhm.
you were off the couch. So the first thing I focus on is the personal credit. So a lot of people have never read the FDCPA and the FCRA, the Telephone Collections Practices Act. It's a lot of consumer laws that people aren't familiar with. I know everybody likes to talk about UCCs and stuff, and the personal credit stuff is basic. But even if you want to go do other stuff, start with your personal credit, because you can get paid cleaning it up. Now,
Mhm.
my personal way that I do it, and everybody has a different way, I use the consumer laws to my advantage, and I do the administrative process with it. So it's not up to you to break down the exact thing, but my letters are really simple. So I just encompass the whole FCRA, the FDCPA, and I send the letters off. It's up to them to understand whether they're violating it or not. But my main thing that I'm trying to get is I purchase debt. So inside of the contract, I wait for it to get assigned, like when they charge it off. So
Mhm.
you can get the charge off because now it's no longer accurate. That's easy work. But you want to get the servicer off, or the third party debt collector. They have to provide that contract. When they buy the debt, they have what they call media, and media is like your statements, your contracts, whatever you got. A lot of them don't have the complete media, but
Right.
the contract says I call it, to explain it simply, it's like buying a used car. When you buy a used car, you can't come take the car back when it's broke down.
Right.
So the original creditor does the same thing. When you buy it, they can't verify or validate the debt is accurate. It's boom, that's it. Well, under the Gramm-Leach-Bailey Act, you have to give your express written consent, and it's in the consumer laws as well, the FDCPA, for somebody to have your non-private public information. That's the Gramm-Leach-Bailey Act.
Mhm.
So if I didn't give you specifically the express written consent to have my information, my personal information, my name, social address, etc., then you're violating that law. So when you get the contract and it's worded different, you got to read the whole contract, but it's always in there, that little clause. That's what you're really after. So you do your little administrative process, and you can put in all the other stuff that you want. I keep it simple because I know that's what I'm after. And then
Mhm.
I get them in the court, and that's what I'm attacking. Because if you can't provide that, then that is identity theft. And we came up with the whole, they call it credit sweep and stuff now. That came from us
Mhm.
at G Boogie America, and you can go
Mhm.
back and check that. That you can actually press charges. That's literally identity theft. So that's how I kind of light a fire. Like everybody goes and does the police report and everything, but the
Mhm.
part that they skipped over when we first released the process is doing that administrative process. You got to do your first letter, your second letter, your third letter, default, and then you got to do your notice of intent to sue, and then go file your case. That's how you're gonna make your money in small claims court. In small claims court, you don't got to deal with no attorneys. So you get them in there, and then that's your little seed money to start your business. So you're gonna get it off your credit, and you're gonna make, in California, it's up to $10,000. So, and then other thing that people skip is I'll go and apply for something that I know I'm not gonna get. I'll go and apply for a house or something, because that's how you get around Rule 12b-6, where you got to have something that relief can be granted. And I'm
Mhm.
paraphrasing, but now I
Mhm.
got some damages. You see what I'm saying? So you stop me from doing that. So what up? So what you gonna do?
Wait a
You know
minute
what
now.
I'm
Hold on. You can't slide by that one because I got so many denials now. I got them all. I got a whole folder of denials. I've been trying to figure out because I know there's something to leverage there, but I don't necessarily know how to structure. You know what I'm saying? Like leveraging that, or like you said, how can I use that to my benefit? So let me ask you this. Let me just clarify. Do you help people clean credit, or is this something that you teach people how to do? Is there like, or do you like, is there? Because I know you said you have like 3 basic um letters that you use when you're first starting your administration process. So do you help people with that? Like if they're struggling with cleaning their credit?
I do, and I do. I have a credit business, but I kind of slowed down on it because the other stuff
Mhm.
is picking up with the
Mhm.
PPMs and stuff. It gets busy.
Okay.
So helping people clean their credit is something that I used to do, and I still kind of do it, but I'm not promoting it, if you know what I mean.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
Well, maybe you can help me clean mine
I
on
got you.
personally, and then I'll come back with the results. You know what I'm saying, for everybody, and let them know how we improved my credit score, because I don't really use my personal, of course, but I know for business purposes I do need to get it, in better standing. So I'm definitely interested in that. And I also, I know that some people actually use consumer laws to, like you said, get paid when they're disputing these credits, and they're like using that as a whole business service. So what are some of the consistent, I guess, things that people could get paid for, or what are certain violations on the credit report that you see consistently or repeatedly that are just kind of like easy wins? And is that a 1, 2, 3 step strategy or process, just like the administrative service when you're sending them the letters, or is it a little bit more tedious or in depth when it comes to that part?
It's several things on there. They don't report accurate. When you do the charge off and they leave it on and it's not accurate, you can use the FCRA, because your credit report has to be 100% accurate the whole time. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we can go, it's a rabbit hole of stuff that we can do. If you want to do a separate show just on that, we can get deep into the codes and all of that.
Not super duper, but just tell me like maybe 2 or 3 things that are consistent that okay, boom, this is almost a guaranteed. Let's say, is it like $1,000 per violation or something to that effect? From what I'm understanding.
You got to look at 1692K for the violations. Okay. And then a big one that I see is false and deceptive business practices. So they'll make it seem like they're AT&T, for instance, and they're not. That's like a big one that I see. Or they'll make it seem like that they're the original creditor. I'll say it like that. Okay, that's a huge one. Right. The other one is the telephone calls. Like when you send them the letter and you tell them to only contact me via USPS mail, or I'm going to charge you this, because you can kind of contract also your own damages in a contract. And I'm gonna circle back to the small claims court in a second and show you how to walk that up. Okay. So that's the 2 biggest things that I see. And the other one that I see is the Gramm-Leach-Bailey Act. Them having your information. That's why I set them up with that. They call it your non-public private information. So if you don't have my express consent to have my information, and the code skips me right now, but you can look it up, then you're doing identity theft. That's a crime, literally. And so people are. Go ahead. I say what happens 85% of the time, people don't show up to court. They ignore the letters. And that's why there's a whole third-party debt collection industry in the first place. And a lot of people are better than me at it. I keep it simple because I'm trying to get down the road to the business credit.
So people are getting paid out from the collection company violations, not necessarily the original creditor company violations. Or both.
You can get them too. Okay. Both.
And what about the credit reporting agencies? What about the credit reporting agencies too? Are they cutting checks as well?
Yes, they are. Okay. You can get on top of their helmet as well.
Now let me ask you this: Can you get a check for each one of them for the same violation? Like if each one of them did the same thing, would that be 3 different claims? Okay, boom. So it's all kind of ways to kind of maneuver and leverage that situation. Okay.
I be trying to tell people to slow down and get your money. For somebody that has a 400 credit score, you're actually looking at your credit report and your seed money is there for your business. So I try to teach people that. And then when you go and get your claim in small claims court, when you get your judgment, now you can go to state or federal court and sue them there too. And now we're not even talking about anything. I already have a judgment. So I'm going in for that violation on the federal level. So you can hit them again. Federal court is a little bit different because you are going to be dealing with attorneys and it's a little more structured different than state court, which you can do state and federal. You can walk them all the way up the ladder. But a lot of times they're going to want to settle out with you and drop the whole thing. So it's just up to you. But you'll be surprised when you go in there that a lot of times they don't even show up or they'll just pay you out. And
so you just win by default, really?
Yep. You get your default judgment.
From what I understand, if they don't respond to your administrative letters before you even pursue a court situation, they're 9 times out of 10 not going to show up if they're summoned to court or they get a notice for the hearing anyway, because they already know that they're in violation, and that would be not a good look. Okay. Now let me ask you this. Go ahead.
If you really want to get busy, you can add arbitration into that. So you can do that whole process through arbitration and then bring that in as a foreign judgment to the court. Now we're not even talking about anything except whether you were served or not. So that's something that's some sauce that I say for the private. I don't want to give that one away too much.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, let me ask you this. If somebody cleaned their credit report off, because I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, and just for clarity, since you're a little bit familiar with it, if you clean your credit report off, but you had violations, let's say for the past 2 years, can you go back and pursue claims for those violations once your credit report has been corrected? Or is it pretty much a wrap once you clean the report? Is it better to go ahead and pursue claims of damages prior to asking for the credit report to be cleaned, as a remedy or relief?
No, you can spin the block on them. For sure. Okay. If they violated the law and you can prove it, yeah.
You still so it's violation.
Court's about policy and procedure violations.
Okay. So let's dive in a little bit. You mentioned something about buying debt. Now, were you saying that you were maybe purchasing debt from independent clients or customers that you were working with to help clean their credit in order to help them clean their credit? Or are you talking about something different with debt buying portfolios and things like that?
You can do what you said first. You can actually buy your own debt under a corporation. That's a little slick way that you can do something. But we're talking about like buying debt portfolios, which is step 2 of the Trinity, is building your business credit. And you can do the 3 tiers, the Uline, Seton, Granger, Office Depot, work yourself up to secure cards with the banks and all of that. You still do all of that process so your file looks right. And then establishing your Dun & Bradstreet number, we used to call it sam.gov. They changed it. You want to do all of your filing stuff. You want to make yourself eligible for grants and stuff with the government by signing up with that. Get your cage code, your A8 certification. You want to do all of that. But the crux of it is to quickly add that, like that money that you got, or when you ran your personal credit up, you can go buy debt. $10,000 to get you, $2 million worth of debt.
Right.
So, or you got to negotiate it out. But now I have a company and I go get a CPA to do a financial audit and sign off on my company. And I have them put it on the receivable side of the ledger. And
Right.
then I write off, if you got some, tax problems, you can figure out how to take some of that debt and you can set off the
Offset that.
taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But
Yeah.
then on the other side, on the receivables, that's worth money. That adds value to your company.
Right.
Then now you can go into the bank and your shares are worth money. So
Right.
now the shares of your company, you can write a note and it's actually backed by something. And
Right.
now you can come in and do your PPM and all of that stuff for whatever your business idea is, and then have your bond counsel letter done and go forward with your idea and start shopping your deal. So now you can do that 1,000, million, quadrillion times until you get something done.
How do you find reputable companies to buy debt from? Because like I was looking into that a couple of years back, and a lot of the companies I was coming across, you didn't even need a whole lot of money to buy the portfolios, but they kind of look scamish, and it's hard to kind of tell, how to vet these companies out for ones that are really authentic, or that might just be, selling you. I don't know. I mean, they may be selling real legitimate debt. I know a lot of it was zombie debt. So maybe non-performing. But let's just say, for instance, if someone wanted to get into debt buying, what are some of the things that they can look for? Or do you have any, companies that you could, suggest that is reputable just from firsthand knowledge of dealing with?
We were going to debtconnection.com, but
Mm-hmm.
and they're gone now. They turned that
Mm-hmm.
into an auction. Some laws have changed, so you got to kind of know somebody now.
Mm-hmm.
And I do got one or two companies that I'm working with, but these are individuals that I know that buy
Okay.
debt. So
Okay.
it's hard because it is a lot of scams out there. It's just
Right.
like with CPN numbers and all the other stuff. So
Yep.
you got to kind of find somebody reputable. I just say I look at their business information. I'll ask what their business is. I'll look to see, are they active, because I
Mm-hmm.
want some recourse. So I
Right.
don't want just somebody that's saying,
Somebody.
I'll
Yeah.
send you some debt, and then you don't got none of their information. People that are reputable, they'll give you their business information, all of their corporate stuff and everything, and you can check it out. But you're still taking a chance. So it's
Yeah.
kind of hit and
Yeah.
miss.
How long have you been into debt, into buying debt and leveraging that? It's like accounts receivables. How long have you been doing that?
We learned that with G Boogie. So that
Oh, okay.
early 20s. But
And so
it's a
this
lot of
about 20 years, now, or over 20 years.
mhm,
Okay. Okay.
hit and miss,
That's,
struggle and learn. Like I used to I call it throwing everything up against the wall. We went in head first. So, all right, we lost here because it's just a write off. You know what I'm saying? If you got the cash
yeah.
flow coming in, all
Yeah.
right, I'll write that off.
So you took some of the money, the funds that you made from the real estate, and then started buying the debt, and then kind of basically, like you said, learn through trial and error with the debt buying. Now, how did you get into the PPMs? And just for anybody listening that doesn't know what a PPM is, can you kind of maybe explain what a PPM is and what that
So
is used for?
that's under Rule 144A. We use Regulation 506D, but when you guys go in and do your research on 144A, you'll see that there's several different processes that you can use. So you can even do it from a nonprofit. But what a private placement memorandum is, the best way I can explain it is like a detailed business plan. So this is where I tell people, if you want to get paid and create yourself your own job, because when you get funded, you got to, let me back up and start there, because then I'll talk about the funding part. So
Okay.
you're going to need to have like your market research. You got to have what they call risk mitigation. Like, so for instance, let's say that I'm doing a company and I want to start food truck company. All right. You go and do your research on how much the trucks are going to cost, how the employees, down to the bone, how much your ingredients are going to cost, all of that stuff. It has to be in there. And then you lay out a plan on how you're going to make the money back. Right. And then you do what they call risk mitigation and market research along with that. And your market research kind of goes along with what I just said earlier, figuring out the prices of everything and all of that stuff. But your risk mitigation is, what if that doesn't work? What's your backup plan?
Okay.
So, and how are you going to cover the money if the food truck thing don't take off?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part people miss a lot on their PPMs. And then the other thing is making sure that you're in compliance with the blue sky laws. And it's a couple other things that I don't want to give away no trade secrets on here with my partners and see me get mad. But
Okay.
one thing I want to
Just give what you can. You don't got to give it all now.
one thing that I do want to say is, make sure this is how they do it. You ever heard of the CEO bailout package? Like, and this happens every day. This is like not anything secret. You guys can start studying the stock market and look at what these companies are doing. That's what the valuations are. We'll get to that. But you write yourself in. So if you're going to be the CEO of the company or on the board, all of those positions have to have salaries and stuff. And then you write yourself a contract with your company, right? And then if something happens, then you're already in, because everything's insured. You're going to get insurance on all of this. So as long as you follow everything you were supposed to do in that PPM and the investors invested, then the insurance company will break you off your cash and they'll take care of everything else. And you're going down the street to go do another one. And that's how they end up getting this money. So like you hear, oh, the CEO of Kellogg's got fired and he ended up getting $2-3 million. You write all of that stuff in a contract as an employee. You got to remember, you're a separate entity. So you write all, however you want to structure it, but you make sure that that's in there for you if you're going to be doing the work. That's how they're able to hire CEOs. Like, you can go and you can Google. We have CEOs that we hire. So you don't want to actually be, and they don't expect you to be actually working. What we do, we have a lot of, in our community, we have a lot of single member owner LLCs, and we're doing the work That's not how you're supposed to be doing business. They want
Right.
you to actually be going out and generating the business and setting up a structure so you can hire employees. That's where the power comes in through this, that we can put back into our communities, and why I talk about it and teach it. Because now we can provide a job environment that's friendly to us, and have the understanding of our community needs. And that's a way to give back. So I hope people can kind of get that down. And I lost my train of thought on what I was going to say after that.
You were mentioning about the CEO bailout, and how if you're basically saying that the PPM has to include, like, what if the business fails, it has to provide provisions for that. And you mentioned having the insurance to cover the
The
cost of
insurance.
law.
This is, and it's not necessary. It's like an unspoken thing. So in the law, it doesn't necessarily say you need the insurance, but get the insurance. It's like
Right.
an unspoken thing. So you want to make sure that your investors feel comfortable making a private investment, because you're going to be dealing with accredited investors. I ain't gonna put my money up. If, say, we got the same business, I'm going to put my money with a business where my money's insured. So if anything happens, everybody gets paid out. If the
Right.
business falls, the lawsuit, any of that, as long as you follow those rules that you had in that PPM, you're straight. And that protects the investor too, and it makes it easier for them to put it on the market, because they're going to grab your note and they're going to securitize it with everything else. So you're kind of writing your own loan, but you're getting the money up front. So that means, 5 years worth of your salary is taken care of, your equipment, all of that different stuff. Then when you pay that off, you go back and get your company revaluated, which that's what I wanted to talk about, the valuations. And you hear companies saying, like, every quarter, you'll hear them saying, oh, their valuation's coming up, and how their stock goes up and down. This is on the public side, but it happens in private too, right? So when you get your company, when they say a company valuation, they're having an audit, just like I was explaining earlier. Well, that revalues your shares. So if your shares go up, then you can go right back to the bank and go get some more money. So go buy more debt.
Right. So okay, so let's okay, so let me ask you this. What does a private placement memorandum mean? Like, what is that? Is that something that's coming from the company? Does the CEO write this? Do you have to, hire a professional, someone else to write it up for you? Like, tell me a little bit about how you're structuring that, and how you get it registered with the SEC. Like, how does that, how do you connect all those dots together?
So anybody can write a private placement memorandum. It doesn't necessarily have to be a CEO. That kind of happens after. And then registering with the SEC is just following the rules under the 144A. And you guys also need to read operating circular so you understand how money works. And you got to get a QSIP number for sure. And I want to clear this misconception up. I don't mean to get off subject, but when you hear me talk about a QSIP number, I'm not talking about the birth certificate number. I'm not talking about somebody else's QSIP number. I'm talking about creating your own. And it's through QSIP Global, and you can create your own QSIP once you have your bond counsel letter and you have your note and everything set up, and your company's been evaluated. So you got to think that this is about insurance. The CPA's insured and the attorney's insured. You're insured, the bank's insured, and the investors are insured. That's 5 insurance companies. You should never be in court.
Right.
And I'm not talking about no birth certificate stuff when I say that. A lot of people, takes me a lot of time to explain that. And yes, you have to be registered on the SEC, and there's a process. Then that's kind of some of the stuff that I gotta not go into, but because people are paying us for that too. But it's basically high finance and asset protection. If you want to kind of get like a full grasp of it, look up high finance and then look up asset protection, and that's what they're really doing with the 144A offerings.
So with the QSIP number with QSIP Global, because I've seen this website before. So you're saying that I don't need to go contact a broker to get me a QSIP number for, let's say, a debt bundle or asset-backed security portfolio. I can go do that myself, but I still need a broker to be able to deal with the securities that's in that bundle that the QSIP number is for. Correct.
Correct. It's just a tracking number, so they can track the actual security. The note, bond, however you're approaching it and what you use. It's tracking that, so they can keep track of where it's going, because it's going to start moving around and changing hands. So, but you can do that application yourself. Is it easy? No, but you can do it yourself. So some people just pay. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of where I found my little lane at.
They pay somebody to do it for them. Is it an expensive process to get it, whether you do it on your own or you pay somebody else to do it? Is it
it's less expensive. Yeah, definitely a write-off. But it's less expensive if you do it yourself. But in a I don't know, to save time or lack of knowledge, you can have somebody do it for you. But you do need to have that all prepared, and you do need to have a relationship with brokers and bankers and the wealth management private desk and all of that stuff. You got to start building that up, and that's where you build it up during the business credit. Believe me, when you start moving that money through that account, they're going to treat you a whole different way when you come into the bank. And you're not going to be dealing with the regular teller. You're going to be dealing with the wealth management department, and that's where you want to be, because that's kind of like the front door to the back office. I'll say that.
So if somebody was interested in obtaining services from you for that, what are some of the things that they already need to have in place before even coming to you, so that they don't waste your time?
Preferably, I'd like them to have a cash flowing business already. Okay. That makes it real easy. Right. But if you don't, then, like, I'm teaching you how to start from scratch. When you get to that point, then you can come call us. I mean, we can turnkey, but I don't even offer it in public because it's expensive. The clients that we're dealing with, and I put one or two private offerings up. I think it's on TikTok or YouTube, and you can go look at it. But a lot of people, a lot of people don't want their information out there. They don't want nobody to know what they're doing. So But I'm gonna do one. I got a little group that I'm putting together, and we're gonna do one, and I'm gonna record it. I don't know how long it's gonna take, but when we're done, we're gonna release it so people can see like in real time what it looks like today.
Gotcha. And will we be able to see like some of the things that y'all do with the private placement once it's in place and you're actually doing whatever it does that happens behind? Okay, yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
I mean, like I kind of,
we're gonna do it like a documentary style.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm familiar with it, but I mean, I've even seen, I've seen some on the SEC, and I've seen some that people place up there, but I don't really have an understanding of what happens after you have it, on the SEC, or like you said, it's live or it's active, and people, I guess investors and things are actually looking into it. That's the part that I never hear anybody talk about, the aftermath of what happens with that and what they're actually doing with the PPMs. So I would love to see that.
What happens is you're basically putting together a financial instrument that you're marketing. It's like selling shares of a company privately. So they're putting up the money to invest in the idea that you have from your PPM. So that actual, like, let's say it's a promissory note, then they'll buy into it in order for it to get a return. So that's why I'm saying you're kind of writing up your own loan, because they're going to make money off of the interest of it. So you're going around and trying to get banks, and sometimes one bank will buy it all, a broker will buy it all, but you want to start selling those, as your company grows. So the better you perform business wise, the more interested people are going to be in investing in your company. Yeah.
Okay, I got you. So private placements are for private business, and I guess public placements are for public businesses or business that's gone public.
Yeah, going public is a whole different animal. That's right. Something that's a goal of mine. But now you got you got more liability to your investors publicly. So everybody usually likes to stay private, and then they'll sell the company. That's what we do.
Okay, so let's talk about let's get into the insurance a little bit. You mentioned, like, just for instance, in the example that you just gave, you mentioned everybody has insurance. You got insurance, the bank got insurance, the CPA has insurance, the attorney has insurance. How important is insurance, and what are some of the ways that you can leverage insurance within the business, aside from just having the coverage if something happens?
You can get into stuff like IULs, and we talked about that offline a little bit. That's not anything that I'm super familiar with, but you can also go that lane where they talk about the infinite banking and all of that. But the insurance, it really is to cover you in case something goes wrong. You're not getting hit for your personal assets, and especially if you're operating out of an entity, it keeps you out of court. So the entity is in court, but you got paid, or whatever your trust or whatever you had over it, you're down the road again. That's why insurance is important, and that allows you to leverage your instrument, your financial instrument, easier, because it makes everybody comfortable. So that's the expensive part of it, though, that people skip over. So that insurance gets expensive, the premium, and they will work with you. I usually try, and if somebody doesn't have the money to buy the insurance, I'll try and get them to work with their insurance company so that they can write them into the PPM. Like, hey, when I get funded, boom, you got your whole policy. So maybe you got to come with some upfront cash or whatever, but that insurance is crucial. So that's how you kind of make your deal more attractive than everybody else. It makes you stand out. Plus, it's kind of like an unwritten industry standard. I mean, you think about it, if somebody wanted $100, the first thing you're gonna ask is when I'm gonna get my $100 back and how you gonna get it back to me. So that's what you're basically saying is, and then, hey, if Bossalina is gonna give you $100 if I don't, she's gonna insure me, she's gonna cover you, and here's her affidavit saying that. Right. So
like with the PPM, when you're saying get insurance, is it the PPM that, like you said, has the insurance written into it, or is it the business that the PPM is wrote for that actually is insured or covered?
Your business is insured, but the note that's generated from the PPM that you're going to be going around and trying to shop to people, that's insured.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So notes, insured notes. How does that work? How do you get a note insured?
Just like
I never knew that was possible. So you can call it. You can call an insurance company and say, "Hey, I got a note or some type of contract that I need insured." Okay, so well, yeah, I guess because I do know you can do.
Well, you do it with houses every day, right? You can't have a mortgage without insurance.
So yeah, because the mortgage does have insurance, yeah, and then the house still has a separate insurance as well. Yeah, that's true. Yep. I've never had a mortgage, but I do know that people have insurances on mortgages, so they have what they call insurance titles or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
They have to insure the note.
Wow, I never looked at it like that. And you mentioned something I thought was pretty interesting too. Kind of made a light bulb go off my head, because you were saying that the insurance coverage is what actually keeps you out of court, and you were saying that that's something that goes over a lot of people's head. And when you said it, I was like, that makes a lot of sense, because like you said, if you have insurance or you get into a car accident or something, and somebody files a claim against your insurance company, it's the attorneys for the insurance company that's really going to be dealing with each other. It's not going to be you talking to the person that you had the accident with. So that makes complete sense, and it actually is. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't figure that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty smart. Yeah, duh. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, because all the businesses, this is, like you said, standard practice with business, but I never looked at it like that. You know what I'm saying? I only was looking at it from like, yeah, of course, get insurance if of course, if you cause hurt, harm, damage, injury, or loss to someone, and vice versa. But it just made so much sense when you said it, because I'm like, wow, I don't have to know all these laws, codes, and statutes and stuff. Why not let the professionals handle it? I don't even want to be trying to remember all this shit, because sometimes it gets overwhelming and nerve-wracking. So yeah, that right there, I was like,
and I would be looking over their shoulder too. I paid for the insurance. What you filing? I'm looking at the court case, everything.
Give me a copy of everything.
Exactly.
Let me review it, but you go ahead and do your job. Hell yeah, because that's what I'm paying you the big bucks for anyway. So it makes complete sense. I appreciate you telling me, because I was like, damn, that's crazy. All this damn, I mean, like literally, I was sitting up there like, hell yeah, because I saw you, like I said, I've seen you on the panel. I heard you talk about insurance before, but sometimes it's hard to kind of get clarity on what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? When you're saying, especially when other people are talking and you can't just really get into it. So just having that conversation with you really enlightened me and brightened my eyes to why insurance is important and why you even talk about insurance so much. And like you said, even with you doing the PPM, I've never heard anybody even mention insurance when it comes to PPM. But it makes all the sense in the world with what you're saying, especially when you're dealing with these financial instruments. So I'm glad that you actually got into that. Now let me ask you, or let's kind of curve it a little bit. We're talking about insurance, surety bonds, and or bonding. What can you give us a little explanation about like the difference between insurance and surety bonds, or just bonds in general?
They're kind of similar. Depends on how you're applying it. Like for the notary, you have to get a bond, right? And that's a surety bond. That's a company that's saying that if you step outside of whatever contract you're going to do, then we'll cover this amount. After that, you're liable for it. So like bringing it from a notary perspective, you get the extra insurance so that when your bond money runs out that you got bonded for, because you have to be bonded to operate in the public as a notary, the insurance will cover that.
Okay. So surety bonds will cover people in their individual capacity for stepping outside the scope of their duties. And then or business.
Yeah, up to a certain amount.
Okay, gotcha.
They're kind of what and what. So, and it's, several different things, but the bonding companies, that's where they make their money.
So how would someone know, or let me say, okay, so what would be give me an example of what would be a good situation to have a bond and insurance, or a bond versus insurance?
Well, what I do, and when I sorry about that.
Oh, no, you good.
What I do when I get my insurance, I get a fidelity crime bond along with it. And that covers you in case any of your people or you do anything, any crimes, cyber crimes, stuff like that. That's how I use it. I mean, they're kind of the same. It's a slight difference, and it's kind of a thing where you should want both. And like a bond is like a guarantee, if I can say it like that. They have different municipal bonds. They got all kind of bonds, but basically it's a company covering a certain amount for you that's guaranteeing up to that amount. After like relating it to the notary thing, you was like, say you did $100,000 worth of damage and your bond is only $15,000, then you would be liable for the difference. That's where you need the insurance, like errors and omissions insurance. If I made an error or a mistake, I would suggest you do both if you can, because they go hand in hand. Because you don't know if anybody's going to be stealing that you hire. People do stupid stuff. We've all worked at jobs and seen people do stuff. And exactly. If you've ever noticed that the CEO is not the one that's inside of the courtroom, like I said, it's going to be the bonding or the insurance company.
Right.
So and you go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That's it. That I was going to say.
Okay, so let's talk about, so with the notary, right? So I'm a notary, you're a notary. I'm just gonna use myself for instance. In Florida, you have the notary, just the notary public bond, and then like for instance, I'm a remote online notary, so that's an additional bond for a little bit more. And then you got like the loan signing agents, that's another bond if you have a loan signing agent authority. Is that enough bonding to cover one in the notary business, or are you suggesting to still get an additional bond outside of those? And when you get this additional bond, should it be like in your individual capacity? Would it be as a sole proprietor, incorporated business?
Never do a sole proprietorship.
Okay.
I would. What I do, I get $1 million general insurance, E&O insurance with a crime bond, and then I put all your assets in there too. Your car, your house, whatever you're doing that you're using for the business should be covered under that insurance. When you sign up, you have to list all of that. So, and if you get something new, call your policy and whoever's handling your policy and let them know so you can make sure it's covered, and that'll cover you. And you need the $1 million to actually really get like a notary contract. You should be carrying $100,000 worth of E&O insurance, period. But you can go to Hiscox for like $100 a month and get $1 million errors and omissions insurance or general business insurance. Just make sure you get the fidelity crime bond along. It's like inside the policy.
Okay, so general errors and omissions insurance with the fidelity crime bond is, you're saying it's maybe like a combination or package deal or something like that, or that crime bond is wrote into the policy for the errors and omissions?
It's wrote into the policy. You want to get general business insurance, but if you call them and tell them what you're doing, because it's going to cover your whole business, the errors and omissions and the crime bond will be under that umbrella of your general business insurance. That makes sense?
It does.
When you're doing and this applies to any business that you're doing, like what we're talking about with the PPMs and everything, you want to call and get that general business insurance, and you just want to make sure that you got that crime bond on there. included. With the errors and omissions insurance already being the general business insurance. But Hiscox is who I use. That's HISCOX, and they're great. They got the best prices.
And so I did take your advice with Hiscox, but like I said, I think I need to follow up with them because I don't know if it's the general in errors and omissions. I know it did say something about a cybersecurity insurance or coverage or something like that, but I need to go back and look at it. But this is what I was going to ask you. So let's say, for instance, okay, like for me, I got a C corp for a corporate structure, but and I don't even remember. I got to remember what I put the insurance on. Did I put it on the actual business, the C corp, or the notary? If you do have a C corp structure or a business structure, would it be better to get the insurance to cover the parent company that's at the top, or and then basically have those other subsidiaries up under there, or would it be ideal to get coverage for each individual subsidiary, or do both?
You can do both, but if you can't afford it, then do the general. Because now,
okay.
But you would have to have that listed as an asset of the business,
Right?
And that's where when you set the policy up, you would say, hey, these businesses are under this C corp, Bossalina Inc., and then all of these entities are insured under Bossalina Inc.
Yeah, so I think I need to call them this week and check and make sure. I'm gonna look at the documents. I'm gonna look at the documentation and then see if I need to call them and make sure that their policy is structured the way that I intended it to be structured. So let's get into the notary. Let's talk about making over $1 million as a notary. I mean, what's up? Can we drop the sauce on that? Because I'm in a notary and I ain't even made. I don't even think I made 100,000. You know what I'm saying? So I'm slipping on my pimping. What kind of jewels and you know what I'm saying, gems can you give me and the listening audience today about how you got into the notary business? What notary services you have offered, how you actually scaled that up, and how you leverage the business?
Well, the big thing about the notaries is you kind of start out on your own doing them yourself, but you want to start shelling those out. So as I went into title companies, I kind of first I did a good job as a notary myself, but I started a company where I start shelling out notaries to other people. But you got to know how to get the contracts signed the right way. That's why I tell people to start a company and not just do it as an individual. The other thing is the technology kicked in around the time, like, where you're getting the notifications and stuff on your text message. Mm-hmm. Those are companies that are using that technology, but they have contracts with the title companies, your Fidelities, your Old Republics, your Orange Coast Titles. I mean, they got a ton of them out there. They also got attorneys that do loan signings for private stuff and commercial deals and stuff like that. It was just a lot of going in, hustling and shaking hands, and it just grew and I scaled it. And knowing how to train your notaries and not making you're a notary. So, when you do loan signing, sometimes it's like 50 pages of instructions. Nobody's going to read that,
Well, I haven't. Now, I'm not a loan signing notary. I have looked into it, so I do know what it entails. But and that's something that I asked you about because as a convicted felon, which I was even surprised I was able to be a notary, and that's something for you all out there that and it may be different from state to state. Like I said, I'm in Florida. Florida is real lenient when it comes to certain things, especially with a record or history. Especially if it's been a while, they actually are supposed to remove it off of your background after a while. Anyway, sometimes they don't do that. You might have to call and manually do that. But I was able to get my notary public and the online notary certification, but I was, kind of hesitant about going for the loan signing because I know you're dealing with, personal information and a lot of, secure documents. So I didn't know if I would qualify, or meet the qualifications to actually become a loan signing notary. So I didn't actually go for it. But you did mention that it may be worth a try because they don't necessarily, that doesn't necessarily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once you get your notary license, you're clear as far as your background checks and all of that stuff. Oh, okay. What it is a lot of people lie on their application. So just be honest with whatever it is that you did. You'll be surprised. It's more about the honesty, and depending on what it is, they just don't want to make sure it's nothing egregious. But a lot of the stuff you guys can, especially like Bossalina said, if it's been a while and you don't have anything else on your record, they're not going to trip.
Do you think it has something to do with if you have I don't necessarily have a record in Florida. So I don't know if that has something to do with it. Majority of my record was in another state, or I don't know. Do they do NCICs when they do background checks for notaries in your state? Are you familiar with that?
In California, they check everything.
So, okay.
Yeah, but as long as you're honest with upfront and you don't have some sort of thing where you're barred from being a notary, then you're fine. I mean, it lessens your odds, but depending on what the crime was. But if you're honest and upfront on the application, I've seen a lot of people get their notary license. As far as getting, I want to get back to something before I forget. Mm-hmm. You asked me about getting the contracts. A lot of it is about, like I was telling you about, setting your company stuff up right and having your file and everything together in the audits with the CPA and all of that stuff. When you want to get the big contracts, you have to have all of that. They got special audits which will cover if you got a valuation on your company. And like Fidelity wants to see that, but that's like getting 10,000 notaries a month, 5 to 10,000. So you get a couple of those contracts. That's when we start kind of really blowing real good.
So, okay. So when you said you started out just on your own, you're saying you were just doing were you doing notaries at the house? Were you doing mobile notaries? Do y'all have, Ron, are y'all registered to do, are y'all certified to do online notaries out there in California?
I can shell them out, but they won't let me do it. They won't let us do them out here. I was waiting for that because I was going to kill them. But yeah, I started out the Isaiah story that I was telling you earlier. I started out of a home office. So I kind of followed his lead on that. And then it allowed me to write off a portion of my house too on my taxes. And then I progressed up from there with the business. I think the first year I did it under my name, and then I moved towards the building up the business. And then when I figured out how to properly build a business and get the certifications and sign up with the AA certifications and sign up with the government to do government contracting and stuff like that. Because when you start getting to the bigger contracts, they want to make sure you're solvent. So you got to have so much money in the bank, all of that good stuff. And they check. And then it's a relationship thing too. You got to have somebody that likes you. But we kind of all came up together. I had been doing it so long that the people that I started out with, like the loan officers and the escrow assistants, they ended up being presidents and, escrow leads and all of that stuff, title officers and everything like that. So that really helped a lot. So it is a relationship thing, but you can start, and it's just good money, even just doing it on your own. You can make $50,000 to $100,000 just doing loan signings. And I got in with the attorneys too. They got mobile attorneys that go around and they do, trust and other documents and stuff. And those were the two things that I kind of piggybacked off of. And then I also advertised a lot on Google to get I might go make $150 doing a loan signing, but then on the way back, somebody has 10 documents that they need stamped. It's going to take me 15 minutes. I go in, boom, 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 boom. I made an extra, $70 to $100 on the way home.
How did you promote your services back then? I know social media and stuff wasn't really a thing back in the day. So how did you boots to the ground, get word of mouth out there, and or how did you promote yourself and network?
Cards, flyers, showing up with donuts, chocolate. I did the whole thing.
So were you going to different businesses and just passing out your card and just letting them know, hey, y'all looking for a notary? I'm on call. Just call me up, whatever the case is, and just started out kind of doing that and worked your way up to actual contracts with some of these corporations or lawyers' offices and things like that, like you were saying.
That's exactly what I did, and I would keep showing up. So I used to try and show up to places once a week. I got myself a little route and get people used to seeing you. Come in and bring them some donuts, leave your cards. Don't be scared. You're gonna have to get used to getting a lot of no's. But if people see that you're consistent and then they get stuck and they can't find somebody, they're gonna say, "Oh, what about that one guy? I was that one guy
by here, right?"
Yep. I smash out as soon as you call. I was hustling. Boom. You call me. Boom. What you doing? I can be laying in the bed. I'll be there in 15 minutes.
Right.
But that leading to getting more business. And then when you actually get your notary service, you have to be able to train your notaries. You get a lot of calls and questions and stuff. And that is a big thing that notary services don't do, is spend the time to talk to their notaries and get them trained. Because now if you get a bunch of good trained notaries, you get, different notaries in different areas that you can go to. And it's a thing that takes some building to do, but you can build that up to making $1 million. I've done it.
I definitely have tried to get some of these. I actually had about 5 remote online notaries at one point in time and was trying to get more. It's just hard getting everybody on the same page with coming to the meetings. I mean, we were definitely meeting because I wanted to get people trained in doing the notary presentment processes, so that more people could benefit from that.
A lot of people don't know about that notary presentment.
Yeah, that's one of my highest paying services. It's not loan signing, but it's coming in a little. You don't have to have an additional certification. So I'm like, dang, I wish the notaries would realize this. And my thing is I really kind of I consider myself more of a notary republic than a notary republic because of the private administration, just understanding, like you said, some of the notary signings and things that most notary publics don't even know about, they're not aware of. But like I said, it's still kind of slow motion with getting notaries hype about it, I guess. So I was thinking about maybe I'm gonna have to probably kind of create some curriculum or something around it to kind of generate more interest in it, because it's a lot of notaries that have these the notary certifications, but they're definitely not promoting it or even really understanding how to do that process. And some of them won't even touch it. Most regular notary publics won't even deal with the notary presentment. So getting people that's in the space, in the community, and then getting them trained and on board to be able to basically franchise out, because that's what I was trying to do. I had about 5 notaries in 4 different states, because another one was in Florida with me, but she actually was a loan signer too. Now she's still on the team because she's a personal friend anyway. But like I said, just trying to get them to come together and understand, like you said, this is a multi-million-dollar, almost untapped lane with a low percentage of competition. So let me ask you this: let's talk about some of the liabilities with being a notary and some things that could be a conflict of interest. So let me ask you this: if I wanted to, let's say for instance, draft trust documents up for clients, but also notarize their document, would that be something that's a conflict of interest?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
Talk about that.
Even though
a little bit.
And I'll talk from a California standpoint because I don't know all the notary laws because they change so much. But you want to make sure that you're not benefiting directly or indirectly from a document. And if you prep something and you got paid to prep it, then if you notarize it, then that's an issue. So I just say it's just safer to cut down on anything. Just if you're going to prepare the documents, then just send another notary out.
Okay, yeah.
Or direct them to go get it notarized somewhere else, or vice versa. Now you can, if somebody brings you that, you can notarize it, of course. But that way you're not putting yourself in a gray area. If they get themselves in trouble or something, you're not in the spotlight or being scrutinized.
So what if it is let's say an arm's length transaction, or let's say my parent company has a notary department. The company drafts the, let's say, trust documents, but like you said, have somebody from that department, the notary department, that's in-house, to notarize it. I mean, I see a lot of companies do that. They have, in-house notaries to notarize their documents. So I'm assuming that's not really a conflict of interest. But like you said, I'm assuming if one person works for two companies, like let's say they're an employee for the company that drafted the entity that drafted the trust documents, but they also are duly appointed as a notary up under the notary department. Would that be a conflict of interest if they're acting, in a dual capacity?
I would run that through my general counsel. Companies that usually do that, they have to make sure that that's tight, and they're probably running that by their lawyer before they do that, and it's probably part of their job position, and they're watching the laws and stuff closely. I'll say, just for the regular person that's just starting to get into it, I wouldn't prepare documents for anybody and notarize them. I wouldn't even try to get into that twist.
Okay,
because it's not that much. Good. Yeah, just keep just a safer move.
Yeah. So, and that's, like I said, those are some of the things that, like I said, those could be concerns. And I think that's important, even with insurance, like we were saying, having coverage, because sometimes being independent or being a small business, you don't have the big wigs to keep up with all the new laws and the changes. And, being a notary and all these things, they're constantly changing, yearly updating so many things. So yeah, that's definitely a good point. So, okay, we talked about, so I wanted to go back to the CPA audits. Now, and also I wanted to get into, when you're saying set up the business properly, can you kind of walk us through what that looks like from, let's just say, a notary business, and then we'll kind of take it into generally, is it the same, or is there something different with other type of business structures when you say you're setting it up properly from the beginning? So when transitioning from okay, go ahead.
Go ahead and finish your.
Well, I'll just say, take us from like transitioning from, a notary just independently going out hustling, and now I'm ready to kind of step my game up and officiate my business structure. What does that kind of look like when I'm getting into that point?
The business structure is always going to be the same, minus your licenses and specific things that you may need. But you're really worried about building up your business profile. It's just like, look at when you were 18, you didn't have any credit, any kind of profile. It's the same thing with your business. It's a baby. So when you first started out, you want to start transferring how you spend your money, your paper, your pens, your ink pens, your power, your utilities, your car. Everything needs to start happening through that business. And as well, you want to start getting business accounts and getting away from using your personal name to get stuff done. That helps build the credit side of it. When I'm talking about your complete file, that means that you got all your registrations. You're registered with the government. You got your business license. You're registered with the Chamber of Commerce. You're with the Rotary Club. Like, you should be able to find my business registered everywhere, if that makes sense. A lot of people they skip over that part of it because they do check. We used to do something pretty slick. Like, how you go in and they have all of these sweepstakes and all of that stuff. You want your data to be inside the system. I would fill it out and put all my business information in. They're selling data. That's going to get me circulating.
Get you around the block.
Around the block.
You know what I'm saying? Passed around, right? Yeah, that's exactly what they're going to do now. Yeah.
And then you want to make sure that you actually have a brick and mortar office if you can afford it. You can start with like an iPostal and all of that. You don't want to be using your home address. You want everything to look official, like you were the McDonald's Corporation, and your file is set up correctly. That's what I'm talking about, the file. A lot of people just get a business and then they just start spending, and they don't have their bookkeeping right. They don't have any kind of CPA or bookkeeper to do their books. They're missing write-offs. You're not filed right. You're not registered with the government. So even if you're not going to do government contracts, which you should look into, you want to be registered and set up for that, because that puts you inside of their system. Everything's connected in the background. And the banking system is the same way. It's all one big circle. So you just want your name ringing around back there. And then when somebody goes and checks, oh, look, boom, look at his financials are good. Oh, look at his credit. He got a Paydex score. He got an Experian business score. He got an Equifax score. You know what I'm saying? And it's good. His accounts are good. You can do the UCCs. You can give as an individual, you can give your company money and do a UCC on it with a promissory note. And then your company's making payments every month. You do a UCC 3. Say you start out with $10,000. I gave him a $10,000 I gave my business $10,000 to start. Well, I loan the business money. I'm gonna do the contract. I'm gonna do all the paperwork just like a regular loan company would do. And then every month, I'm gonna say it's $1,000 payment a month. Then it's gonna be a UCC 3 every month until I cancel it. That's gonna show up on your credit report. Right. So, and you can do that business to business, or if you guys got, like you said, you got 5 notaries, you guys can all help each other out on your business profile with that.
Child, don't nobody want to get with me. I've been trying to get. I know how to do. I know how to do the commercial trade lines. People don't understand it though. You know what I'm saying? And then a lot of people, like you said, they're not really set up right. And to be honest with you, I actually have done it before. I stopped because I found out that my business wasn't structured right. Because I was like, well, dang, I can actually do this myself with my own businesses, but I can't be the owner on all of them, right? So I had to kind of restructure in order to be able to do that. But I about a lot of this other stuff. You know what I'm saying?
I think I missed a little bit of what you said. You froze up a little bit.
I was saying, that's actually what I was doing. I was working on before I actually kind of stumbled upon the private side of the business, consumer laws and credit, because that's what I was getting into. What it was, it's something I needed to clean off of my business credit report too. And I was just wondering, like, dang, I wonder, is it easy to clean your credit report up like it is, your personal report, like if you have things that you need to get wiped out. So I kind of drifted away, like I said, for a short time because, like you said, you need somebody to kind of do the business with. Back then, we were doing the security agreement on the UCC, and then of course using the Duns and Bradstreet for the reporting side of it. So with the business structuring, let's talk about the registration through the Secretary of State. Now, what in your opinion, what is the best type of business entity structure? You mentioned no sole prop. So would that be a LLC? Would that be a corporation, partnership? Can you talk about that a little bit, pros and cons of those structures?
I kind of like C corps. It's kind of a personal thing. Just don't use sole prop because they tax. It tells you on the IRS side if you go read it. They don't suggest you use it because of the tax implications. So it kind of depends on where you're at. You can use the LLC or the S corp because it has flow through taxation to your personal credit. So that's why you hear a lot of people say that. The C corp, they say you're getting double taxed because you have to cut yourself a check, which you should be doing anyway. But I like the C corp because you can offset that with the debt. So once you learn about the debt, it's like, well, I'll just go buy some debt and offset whatever taxes. That takes care of that whole thing. Yeah, and then C corps actually look better for getting money from the banks. They prefer C corps, like to get the real money that everybody's talking about.
I heard because they can insure the contracts or loans with C corps. They can't insure them with LLCs or partnerships or any other structure. So if they take a loss or if something fails with what you're doing, then they're still covered. So that definitely makes sense. What if your sole prop is employed by your C corp though? Would that be a bad situation to do? As far as paying yourself as sole prop and still using that as a pass through without actually distributing anything from the corporate level, so that you still
I just don't like. I mean, you can do it. Depending on, you can structure it anything you want. I just prefer not to do it. And this is not legal or financial advice before I get into that, but I prefer not to do it. I think that the sole prop, there's so many other different ways that you can get to the same thing without using a sole prop. I know that's been a big topic the last, 4 or 5 years, but I just say, just set it up so that your name is not on any of it. Like,
so
only thing I use my social. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'll finish up when you get done.
The only thing I use my social for is credit. That's it. It doesn't have anything in its name or anything, just credit. In case I need to liquidate or something happens with any of my businesses or anything goes down, then I got $150,000 to start over.
But I mean, with a sole prop, you still have an EIN, so you're still not using your social if you are using it as a sole prop, correct? Because I was going to say, like you did mention hiring yourself as an employee of the C corp. What are you hiring yourself under? Is it a different, like how else would you hire yourself to work for the C corp without using your social security number? Excuse me.
Well, if you were going to hire yourself, you can use your social or you can do a sole prop, but I would suggest doing a special purpose vehicle.
Okay.
So that way, and that means that I got a business trust. So my name is not going to be on anything in that capacity. So it's that, and this is kind of what I want to teach people and what we're working on is when you are setting up all of these businesses, you want to use an entity to do business together. Like you say, you guys got 5 different notary companies. Well, if each one of you guys had a trust or a business, you would form a business trust just for that specific venture. And then you guys would sit on the board over that. But then the money is getting split to your entity. And then you do what you want to do with it from there. So it's not actually your social security number that you're using. You can have your entity get paid and then you can disperse it from there, like offshore.
So even though it would look like your name is one of the board members, it's really a trust that is the board member. It's not you. It's just you acting through the capacity of that SPV.
Yeah, okay. You're representing your trust.
So what kind of tax benefits, deductions, or obligations come with that structure, or hiring yourself as working as a special purpose vehicle underneath the corporate structure? What's different from the way you get taxed in that capacity as opposed to a sole prop?
Well, you're in control of your liabilities through the entity. Okay. So it's whatever structure that you got, because my structure may be different from your structure. The business is gonna pay the whatever taxes it has. Then the special purpose vehicle is gonna pay, right? And then that's going to be a write-off for the special purpose vehicle for the paying the business taxes. Then you guys are going to split the money, and then you're going to do whatever your structure is set up to do, and take your losses or whatever for that. So it's one big
the board members will split the money that's left over after the tax obligations.
Yep, under whatever company that they have.
Okay. And so, how do you? Is there as far as like the double taxation with the C corp? Because like you said, I know a lot of people don't really understand how that could be beneficial to be double taxed on that situation. How are you offsetting the taxes on the business side of it as far as the C corp getting taxed, not the SPV? Are you deferring payments?
Remember I was telling you about buying the debt?
Okay, I got you. Okay, that's where that comes in at. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And you're not doing no distributions anyway, so it still is deferred anyway. It's not really you're not really getting taxed on anything if you're not paying anything out. Correct.
And I'd rather pay $5,000 and get $500,000 to $1 million worth of debt and set that off with the IRS than to pay $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 in taxes. And then I'm still going to write that $5,000 off anyway, so it's going to come out to a goose egg.
Well, I hope we're able to use you as a middleman broker for these damn debt portfolios soon.
I got you.
Okay, because we really gonna be needed that. Because like I said, I got a C corp. I'm putting everything together. Oh, that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about. Now, you mentioned being registered with a couple of different entities on the state level, and I think this is important because this is something that a lot of people don't talk about. Now, I did catch the Chamber of Commerce, but what were the other entities that you mentioned having your business registered with, or in their database, so that you could be considered a legitimate entity?
Any government entity. I'll make this simple. Any government entity that allows your business to sign up, go do it.
Oh, okay. But
Yeah.
it was like 2 or 3 of them that you named specifically. I know you said Chamber of Commerce. You said
The Rotary Club.
Rotary Club. Yeah, that was one. What is a Rotary Club? What do they do?
A group of rich people that got a club.
Sound about right.
Yeah. But
I know it's come out of that's over my pay grade, but okay, cool.
You can go look it up. They do community building stuff and all of that stuff.
Okay.
It's just a group. You want to be in as many of those places as possible. They also help get your business money, grants.
Mm-hmm.
We got the Black Chamber of Commerce, the Asian Chamber of Commerce. You want to sign up. Well, you want everybody to know who you are in any kind of group, government, nonprofit organization. If you see something driving down the road, stop and sign up. It's just being conscious of it. But you definitely want to get sam.gov, and it'll take you to the new site. I can look real quick to give you guys the site. They changed it. That's one big one that you definitely want to be. This still sam.gov. Yeah, you definitely want to be registered with sam.gov, and you want to get your AA certification. And you guys got to look that one up. I'll leave you with some research on that one, and just look up what that is, because that makes you eligible.
You got to be in business for at least 2 years. I already know it because I'm familiar with government contracting. Actually, that's when I first started my company. That's what I was going to get into until I realized that the private side was active, and that's when I kind of like put it to the side. But I actually started to get certified with government. I was actually getting my certification for small women-owned business, and economically disadvantaged women-owned business. And those are just a couple of easier, some of the first level certifications. Then of course they have the veterans, they have the LGBT. I think they actually want you doing government contracting for 2 years before you qualify for 8A, because those are like $7 million contracts and up to $999 million, or 9 years, whatever comes first. So yeah, I'm familiar with it. Yeah. So that's
somebody said that you can go file 0 for 2 years on your taxes and pay the state fees, but I don't know who said that.
And also another thing that you can do is you could just be a subcontractor under a prime, you know what I'm saying, and kind of slide in that one too. So like you said, it's about relationships and stuff as well. But I was taught, when I was going to the county and the state meetings for government contracting, some of the things they were suggesting was just start out with the local county level contracts that they may offer, and get some of what they call the low hanging fruit. Some of those contracts that are just maybe delivering tissue to a jail for a year or something like that, just to kind of get your feet wet, even though they might be $15,000-$20,000 contracts, for the whole year. But if you stack them up, then you can have 4 or 5 of them that you're overseeing, because it might be like 1 or 2 delivery dates a month, something like that, and you can just outsource that as well. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a super high paying contract to get you there. They just want to know that you have a consistent 2 years, and they do require your tax transcripts. So that's probably why that person said that. Yeah, so that could be a workaround now, because if that's the case, then I'm in the game, because my business I haven't done the taxes on it yet, but we're gonna get to that part as well. So the other thing I wanted to touch bases on was you mentioning getting your business audited by a CPA. Now, I'm assuming this is after you've been in business. Let's say I'm assuming you hit somewhere between the $50,000 to $100,000 mark, and that's when business is good, it's consistent. Is that when it would be a good time to look into getting the business audited, or is that something that should be done, at another time? How do you know when it's time for that?
You should have that done from the beginning. Technically, you should have your CPA and your bookkeeper and all of that, and your general counsel all lined up from the beginning, and that way they can audit it. And then you can have it audited a year, but you really want to get it down to where you're filing your taxes every quarter and having it audited and doing your valuation. But it costs money, so you got to cash flow.
That's what I'm going to say. Why am I getting it audited when I first started the business if I haven't really made any money?
No, I'm not saying getting it audited. They should be in place. Yeah. When you first start your business, you shouldn't be doing your bookkeeping and all of that by yourself, and we do that a lot. You should have a bookkeeper, and you should have your CPA. All of that stuff should be done when you set up your business, and from the gate. But a lot of that is doesn't happen. So as soon as you can get one, go get it and have them audit your books and everything and what you did, because a lot of us end up having to do it ourselves or using these programs. But you actually want to have a CPA, and then that's a big part of you getting money at the bank too. Is not doing your taxes personally. You're having a licensed professional stamp and certify that these numbers are good.
I got
because they're putting their license and bond on the line.
So let's roll this out. I can start with my personal credit, looking for some type of violations that these companies have done. I can probably pull me about 10 bands out of that credit report and start with that to be able to get some of these things when I want to go start my business, aside from whatever the business is, and if I need licensing or certifications. But once I get the business registered in state, let's say a C Corp, and I'm indexing my business profile within these companies and things like that to kind of get me in the database. And start, let's say, like you said, building up some of the smaller business trade lines like Uline, Shirtsy, and a couple of other ones that you can just, Granger, you mentioned Granger, and that you can actually start building up some of the smaller business. I said trade lines, I meant net 30s and stuff like that, net 60s. And once that is kind of rolling and some consistent funds are coming in, I need to look into hiring a CPA, a bookkeeper, an auditor, and a tax preparer. And okay, now the general counsel, can you explain that? When you say general counsel, do you mean my board members, or are you talking about something different?
An attorney.
Okay, all right. Well, and that's a business attorney that specializes in contract law and things of that nature. Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Now, let me ask you, just because I don't know about how much these things might cost, what is a general like out-of-pocket expense for some of these things starting out with like the bookkeeper, the CPA, the auditor, the attorney? What would you say would just be like reasonable? So I'm making sure I'm not just, getting gypped or, getting finessed and spending unnecessary funds.
That's going to fluctuate because it's going to depend on their experience and their book of business too. So
Okay.
your more experienced attorneys and CPAs are going to be more expensive, but they're going to be worth the money. So I would kind of shop around. It's just like shopping around for insurance. So, and if you don't think they're doing a good job, you can fire them and go find someone else.
Now, are you paying them a flat rate out of the gate, or is this like usually a monthly expense? A monthly a revolving amount that you're paying every month to just keep them on retainer, or are you just paying them one time for a specific service for the year? How does that kind of work?
It can be either one. It just
Okay.
depends on the arrangement that you make and how they're set up. Some you can
Okay.
pay monthly, some you can pay for piecework, some you just pay a flat fee for the retainer.
Okay. Okay. And with the government contracting, now you mentioned getting signed up for government contracting. Is that to contract with the government, or is that just to be in their database as a legitimate entity in the state or on federal
You,
level? Sorry.
I would say you should contract with the government all the time, but you just want to be in the database to start with. If you don't plan on contracting with the government, you don't have to, but you want to be in the database.
Have you ever done like
I would look in.
specific government contracts? Have you gotten government contracts before?
I did one with my dad, but it was through the I want to say the city and not the county. But that's
Okay.
something that we're going to be exploring. We have a grant writer flying out this month, so we're going to start getting in kind of back into that. That's something that I kind of dropped the ball on that I didn't circle back to. But yeah, I was just using it to get in the database at first, but I should have been
Really trying to
getting it
pursue
in.
the contracts. Yeah, I stopped moving forward with the government contracts when they gave me the paperwork for the bonds, and this was kind of interesting because I had the GSA bonds. You know what I'm saying? They gave me the GSA bonds. They give you the release of real property from escrow and stuff. And I'm looking at these documents. I'm like, why this is? I'm like, well, I don't know if I want to sign this stuff, right? Like I said, this before I learned about this other stuff. But then when I got into like learning about private administration, and then I come across everybody talking about GSA bonds, getting people out of jail or prison because it's a government contract. And I went back in my government contracting book, and I'm like, these are the same papers. I mean, the exact same papers. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's when it clicked. You know what I'm saying? But to me, it was like, I think I was even telling you this. It's like, okay, you learn all this stuff. You learn credit cleaning, consumer law, status correction. You learn, discharging debts. You learn estate claims. You learn trust. And then what? You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, now you're back to the business because you still have to have some type of funds or something circulating or streams of income and revenue generating. So that's also the conclusion that I came back into. Like, okay, now that I understand the contracts, the bonds, why they gave those to me, because at the end of the day, you're the one that's signing the bond. You're literally bonding yourself. You're opting to be the surety. And so it's not, I mean, like I said, I'm not familiar with using GSA bonds to get people out of jail. I've heard they work, but it kind of made sense when I heard people talking about it because I'm like, wow, it really is a government contract. You know what I'm saying? I kind of put two and two together when I went back and looked at some of those documents. So that was like a full circle moment for me. And I'm kind of pretty much the same. I got grandfathered in with having the UEI number because I already had the Duns and Bradstreet number before they switched it over for the government contract. And so since I'm already in the database, I say the same thing. But I also want to get registered to get grants and things from the government because I just did the Duns and Bradstreet to do government contracting, but not to get the grants, which is two different sides of the field. So that's something I want to get into and explore as well. So we kind of talked about a few things, and now we're going to kind of get into a little bit more in depth about the business trust, creative financing strategies, and what was the other thing we was going to talk about? You said you want to circle back to, I think you said the operating circulars, and you said you're going to dive a little bit more into that and come back to like the regulations for the bond. That's where we left off at. Okay, so I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into the grants and the government contracting with the 8A. So tell us a little bit about, you mentioned the 8A earlier. What was the benefits of being 8A certified? Because you were kind of talking about that a little bit.
The access to the contracts, the government contracting. You get bigger contracts with that. To sum it up, that's something that I'm working on currently, and I'll come back and we can talk about that. I actually got a nephew that's doing pretty good with that right now, so he's kind of showing me an example of what I should have been doing. So I'm happy that the information got passed along. But yeah, my little nephew's getting it in. We're
Okay,
like
that's cool.
the whole AI thing and all of that stuff.
Fintech, yes, yeah. I had a friend who had a really large opportunity, well, a really big opportunity with a government contract that they were going to fund him for a fintech product that he had. He was in Silicon Valley for like 3 years, but he's into tech, and he made a software that basically does a lot of data tracking. Basically, what I found out how I met him was at actually, ironically, convention teaching about 8A contracting and getting 8A certified. And he was there to get 8A certified because he had like $1 billion contract with the government. They were offering him to test out his software for at least 10 years. You know what I'm saying? So, basically want to make sure they're going to, wherever they're going to put it, do the data testing and all that stuff, the beta testing stages. And they were going to actually pay him for that and then possibly buy the rights to the usage of it once that was up. But then COVID hit. So it kind of fell through the cracks because, they pretty much stopped everything when COVID had came with all the funding and stuff in the contracts that was kind of already in motion. So he didn't really actually get to pursue it. But yes, that fintech, the government pays big bucks for that stuff. So that's definitely, especially
Yeah.
this AI. Mm-hmm.
And
Really going
that's
way
why,
forward.
like, I understand people, we wake up to this information, like, kind of going back to the private side a little bit. We wake
Mm-hmm.
up to this information and we're angry and we want to tear down the government and all of this stuff. This is actually our system that our ancestors wrote, and
Right.
they're just following it, but we don't understand it anymore. We've gotten so far into this European type style society that we don't get that this is actually our stuff, and we're the ones who are creating a lot of the innovation and technology. I mean, you can go ham on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and Google all the inventions and the
Right.
people that look like us that are of our hue that didn't get credit for a lot of stuff. And that's just the stuff we know about.
Right.
But
Right.
we are a reflection of society. We just have to learn this business part. That's why I kind of want to break it back down to that. So we're not scared to do business, and we're not scared to do business with the government. It's not the system, it's the people that are running it. So we need more people that are like us that understand the public and the private to start getting these businesses. I am not the guru of anybody or anything. I just kind of share my experience of what I know, and hopefully that leads somebody to look up stuff and inspire somebody else that you can make it. And then you come back and share when you get it and you do it, then you come back and share. That's why I kind of ask for proof when people start talking. And it's cool to have this kumbaya type, I don't know, attitude about things,
Mm-hmm.
if I can say that in a polite way, but that's just not how the world works. So, I mean, we got to kind of like be in reality for 2026, and you want to be set up to do business with governments, and not just our government, everybody's government. And that's, I would like to come back and talk about the offshore shit.
Right.
I almost said, start talking like you at the house. Come back and do the offshore stuff.
Feel free, express yourself. We're not censored over here. We ain't censored over here now.
But I want people to understand that this system that we're teaching works everywhere where there's a central bank. So that's a good thing. Hey, people in Africa need roads, garbage service. A lot of the stuff that we know here, we can go travel and make enough money and start businesses over there too, and actually help people out. So we're kind of, it's like a shift going on. Everybody wants to say this awakening and quickening and whatever Mayan calendar. No, it's just us coming to an understanding that we need to do business with each other again. And I think teaching people to work out of special purpose vehicles and have their personal situation set up on a basic level is a great start. And we don't know everything. I'm not a CPA. I study it. I know enough. I've dealt with them, but I know how to hire one. And I'm going to make sure that I learn from him. Like, it's just not just a plug and play. And you're not going to be able to go write your name on a 45-degree angle on a piece of paper and they give you $87 million. How can you get that and you can't manage your own credit? And you're $1,500 worth of debt and you can't manage that. Why would anybody give you $87 billion or $1 million? So
$87 billion. Listen, this is actually what I was going to say. And you made a great point. And this is why I really value this conversation, because in this private administrative community, as I like to refer to it as, and even though you might not be a guru, they say, doing something more than 10,000 hours classifies you as a master in that field. So I would say that you have the credentials, right? The thing that I think is a very important, valuable message here today is that it's unrealistic to always try to feel like you're going to be the one to actually do everything. Like, and what I mean by that is, like, when I first became a small business owner, I quickly found out that entrepreneurship is not, the end of the road for working, right? Because then you become every position in your small business because you're just starting out and you don't have enough money to hire someone. So it's hard to scale the business up to big business if you're doing every single position in the company, right? So one of the I think, because I always try to, I always say the private administrative community is very mystified, and there's a lot of mystery, or I'm not gonna say it's a lot of mystified presumptions and misinformation going on. So, like, instead of us feeling like we got to handle all the laws, all the taxes, all the legal issues, knowing how to contract and stuff like that, or even write, like you said, like grants and stuff, because I'm somebody that kind of like, it's like, I know if I gotta like to have it done right, I have to do it myself, right? But even I have to get out of that thought process. And so a few things to me that stuck out today is what you were talking about, delegating those duties to the people and the professionals that are already trained in that area. And one of the things that a lot of the mystifying information in the community is, don't use attorneys, don't use the tax preparers, don't use the people that got their credentials or their certification from the system, because they don't have our best interest in mind. But it also puts you in a position where you're kind of like stuck and you can't do enough. You can't do everything that you need to do because it's just you by yourself and you can't be all the positions at one time. So I think kind of reeling it in back to reality on, listen, find a way to generate the money or get some kind of capital funding. Like we even talked about a strategy, like you mentioned, with your credit report, finding a way to get the capital funding to be able to cover the cost of those things, and then free yourself up from being tied down to all of those positions so that you can focus on actually scaling the business up, and they can focus on the positions, the things that you don't need to be, filling in. Right. And so even like understanding that the goal is to, I would say for me, my goal is to purchase other businesses, either that's already generating some kind of revenue, it's already started, or at least they can be easily scalable, and then I can hire people to put in position to work in the company. So I'm not the employee and the boss and the owner, all the above. So that is, I think that's an awesome thing that you kind of brought to the forefront, because a lot of people get this information, they want to quit their job, they want to be the lawyer, they want to deal with all their court cases, and it can get overwhelming, especially because all kind of violations and legalities are coming up on a day-to-day basis, and before you know it, you're overwhelmed. I was watching episode interview with Brandon Joe Williams the other day. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but I'm sure you are, the pickle dude. And he was like saying how he has so much litigation going on because there's always violations when you're trying to assert your rights. But he's handling all these cases, you know what I'm saying, by himself. And I think it's honorable, you know what I'm saying, if you know the law, you learn the law, and you can, you know, insert it and enforce it on your own. But realistically, everybody doesn't have the capacity to do that. Everybody doesn't have the competency to do that. Everybody doesn't have the mindset to even put themselves in a position to do that. And so we have to be realistic about it, right? So people that offer services and help other people that can't do the things they need, I think that's where it kind of, you know, those things come into place, because you'll see a lot of people say, well, if money ain't real, why y'all charging? You know, but it's like, you know, some people just can't do this, and some people actually do have the money to pay somebody to do it, and they would rather do that because they don't want to be bothered with all the hoopla. You know what I'm saying? So providing your services for those who need it is why you would charge it, because you don't, you know, nobody else, none of these professionals are giving out free services, you know, unless it's a write-off, of course, or something like that. But they're going to get some kind of benefit on the back end for sure. So I think that's actually a good point that you pointed out. And I really want people to kind of take that from this interview today, that we got to kind of get out of that, you know, don't use these people, you know, don't, if they went to school, they have the knowledge. I don't see what the point of it is. It's just like people saying, well, the money's not worth anything, so why it still has a value to it, and it's still a form of exchange. And it, you know, the weed man don't take, you know what I'm saying, promissory notes, unfortunately. So at some point in time, you're still gonna, you know, say you might need some Federal Reserve notes, right? Because he doesn't know what we know about private administration and so on and so forth. So I'm just saying, people say that the money is not real. It might not be real as far as having intrinsic value, so to speak, like a gold coin or silver coin, but it still has value to it. It's still a valuable tool, and money is supposed to be used as a tool, just like a promissory note. It doesn't technically have any value to it, but it's about how you use it to leverage that creates the value. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's definitely important issue, because I feel like you're someone whose information I value and whose knowledge I value. And for you to, you know, kind of demystify that idea of not using those people, you know, that says a lot, because it kind of brings people back down to reality and helps people to be more grounded. And that'll actually take a lot of load off a lot of people's shoulders. You know what I'm saying? Like, just go pay a professional. Like you say, look over their shoulder, check the work, see what they're doing, so you can be familiar, you can be kept abreast, but you don't have to be the one to actually be performing everything. You know what I'm saying? So
Exactly.
that'll wear you out. So.
Yeah, it didn't, man. And I've been there. You see, I got glasses on. I didn't get this from my eyes being bad. I got it from reading. So, and you'll realize you can't do all of this stuff yourself. It's impossible. It's an impossible task. And there's no one silver bullet out there. It's just you changing, you know, your lifestyle and how you were taught in the system. You were brought up to be an employee. So there's no business school. You're supposed to be learning this stuff at home. But for a lot of us, our parents did the best that they could. I got great parents and they did a great job. And some of us don't have parents. Some of us have one. It's your situation is going to be tailored for you. But it's your understanding of employing the right type of help that you need, and not being scared to admit that you don't know something. Not saying not to study it heavily, but go get somebody and then learn from them too. The teacher is always the student as well. So I don't know everything. That's why I get on TikTok, Instagram. I'll be on people's lives, seeing if I miss something. They might say something, a bunch of stuff I know, and then I might hear the one thing that I don't know. And then I'll go look at that. You're always supposed to be expanding your knowledge. And I just want to give people a way to get off the ground with whatever it is that they're trying to do. But some of this stuff you guys got to put down, because it's not true. And I mean, millions of people have done it, and millions of people with doctorate degrees and all kind of stuff like that. The sheiks, whatever you're into, they haven't got through. And this is the way that I've gotten through, because the whole point is to make sure that you got resources to take care of your family, and you can protect those assets and give it to the people that you love. So, and you got to make some of this stuff spit out of an ATM machine. Like, show me how your process I can go use it in the public.
Right.
So
I can actually apply it. Right.
I can apply it, because you're the transmitting utility.
You and your brain. Just talking to you, you know, you can tell that, I'm not gonna say you're stress-free and worry-free, but you can tell like your anxiety levels are not up, right? Because like I said, a lot of times you're overwhelmed, anxiety levels up, you know, you can't focus, you're constantly dealing with things, and you're getting further behind because stuff is just piling up. I think when you're able to delegate these things out, like, it takes away some of the worry, the stress, you know, just like you kind of, like I said, you can kind of calm down and be confident that things are still going to work in your favor, because you have people in place to do those things for you. So we talked about some public administrative things. Let's get into like the business trust, right? Let's talk about that. What's some of the things you think are important with understanding the purpose of business trust, the importance of business trust, and how to actually operate out of a business trust?
Like, here's the main thing, and I'm gonna speak from my community of melanated people. We have a problem with running off with a bag. Everybody has great intentions, and we do handshake deals, and I got you home, I got you, you my guy, you know what I'm saying, I got you family. And then when the money comes in, everybody forgets that conversation. They don't remember. I like setting up business trust, because we can either go through a point of sale split, or we can set up an escrow account. Everybody lays out the contract so nobody forgets. You get yours, I get mine. You do what you want to do with it, I do what I want to do with it. And this business thing keeps kicking out money. And if we want to take more money and invest, then we can all work together in doing that. But nobody's in control of the money. The books are open. So you can have your CPA come audit them, I can have mine, and that actually makes it better for the whole structure. That's why I like business trust, which is it can be anything, but it's a special purpose vehicle for working together. And that's community building. And we can decide how we do everything before we get started. And then we have to stick to that. And if anybody forgets, we got this paper. Remember, we signed this, it's notarized.
Right.
Everybody was in agreement. If we want to change something, we can have a board meeting, we can change it. And then the way that you're receiving your money, there's tax benefits how you want them. I might not want to do business how you're doing business, but I do want to do business with you. And I want to make sure it's fair. That keeps everybody on the up and up. And that's the way that we should be doing business amongst each other. Even if it's something as small as starting a hair care service or a lawn service or a food truck. That's like the big popular thing right now. Well, I know that before we buy anything or we start doing anything, that these are going to be the rules. Here's what happens if you want to leave. We work through that whole thing, and then we assign each other tasks until we can hire people to do them. And then once we hit a PPM, now we're on the board and nobody's working. I'm not talking about forming this stuff where you're the one doing the work. You're the one that's creating the ideas. So we have 5 people that we're all holding each other up, and we're bringing in business because we got our free time, and then our families are taken care of. If you go blow your money, you go blow your money. But it's the best way, in my opinion, to operate. And that's what they're doing. And they're whooping our ass with that, period. And it's our system. That's how we used to operate in our communities. So, but this handshake deal stuff and I promise and everything, and there's nothing written, no contracts or nothing, that's a no-go. I don't do business like that at all.
Right. I always say that's the difference between hustling and being a real business, man or woman. If there's no contracts involved or some type of agreement involved, then you're not really doing any business anyway. And things can get shaky, right? Because nobody has anything to really lose if things go left or if people don't keep their word, or they put you put all the work in and then nobody else is putting all the work in and they just leave you high and dry. So you mentioned earlier that you have your name as a trust as well. So you're operating a special purpose vehicle inside of another special purpose vehicle. How does that, so like, give us a little insight about that. Is that like a living revocable trust? Is that another type of trust structure? And how do you use that in your everyday, like day-to-day, business or day-to-day, just personal matters?
Well, you can build a trust like a business. So I've had Tobias Bay for a while when I first ran into the Morris information. So I came into this information as a base, so I keep that as an honor, but I study everything. But that's the way I ran into some of the more spiritual information and stuff like that. They helped me along with the business. Those are law books, all of this stuff, the Bible, the Circle 7 Quran, the Clock of Destiny. You guys are looking at this like a religion. This sovereign stuff is turning into a religion. But I study it like a law book of how you're supposed to live. So I set up a trust. That's one of the first trusts that I set up with. I got a 98 number and all of that good stuff. But I actually have a foreign company. It's not like I went and, just write this address and then go down there. It's not no fidangling. Like I actually, if I was to go to court, I actually have a foreign trustee. So I built that up like a business, and I use that in place of my social. So I still build credit on it. There's times that you may want to use your social. You know what I'm saying? I mean, technically, I can go down and get benefits from the government if I need it. So I want to leave all of that open.
So your name trust is not a living revocable trust. It's actually what, a foreign grantor's trust?
They say a foreign grantor's trust, but there's only 2 trusts. It's either revocable or irrevocable. Mine is revocable, but it's connected to a trust that's overseas. But the one here is revocable. And the reason I personally use revocable trust, because things change, laws change, situations change, power changes. I want to be able to change my trust. What I did, and I do with all of my trusts, is I make it irrevocable upon my death. So, or demise, if you want to say that. So then my kids all have their own separate trust set up for it to be dispersed to them from my trust in any of them. So then they take it and they do the same thing with theirs. But I have that clause in there. So when I'm gone, it turns irrevocable. I don't know why you would want to set up a trust that's irrevocable that you can never change. I mean, there's maybe some benefits that somebody else can explain to me, but for me,
I think the only time I can see it is if you have personal family assets or an estate that you're never going to use in commerce or sell off, and you want it to remain in the family. That's really the only reason I would see that somebody would do that. You know what I'm saying? But like you said, I understand the benefits of both of them. Irrevocable, maybe, if you're dealing with securities, I'm assuming like, you need like a broker or somebody that you have to sign limited power of attorney to manage those securities for you and things of that nature. But that's probably the only 2 scenarios I can really see the benefit of doing that. Other than that, and I wouldn't have many assets in there outside of what they're managing. You know what I'm saying? So like you said, because you don't want to have stuff trapped in there. But those are the only 2 reasons I can see. But what I'm trying to understand is, okay, so it's a revocable, but is it living or is it another type of structure as far as the name?
It's a living revocable trust.
Okay.
So yeah. Because you can't, if you're not really dead, like you hear people talk about this estate stuff, but you're not really dead. They're going to chew that up in court. So I try to line my private business up to mirror what they're doing in the public, if that makes sense. So that's why I was saying that I actually have a real foreign trustee. And then where I'm holding my actual assets, it doesn't have an EIN. It does no business. It's just strictly there. It's like a private holding company for my family. And everything that goes in there is unencumbered. So that means that it's paid off. There's no liens. Nobody owes anything on it. I'm putting that away like a piggy bank for them.
And that's the foreign one that you're talking about that you got the foreign trustee for. Okay, that makes sense. So then that's what I was going to ask you. Does it have an EIN or anything like that? So let me ask you this. What's your opinion or views on recording your certificate of trust in the county, or, not registering the certificate of trust in the county?
I don't really do it, but there may be a situation where you got to do it. And if I do it that way, that's going to be like a public thing. But why would I go register my trust for what? If
Well,
something,
okay, so let's say for instance, like the living revocable right, or maybe a family trust or something like that. Maybe or a estate trust. For instance, I've seen where, for instance, okay, this is what happened. I had an associate who went and was going to purchase a vehicle, and they wanted to put the vehicle in their trust name. They didn't have, it was something they didn't have. They either didn't bring the EIN paperwork in with them, or they didn't bring the trust paperwork. But I think they gave the car lot company the name of the trust. Yeah, they didn't have the EIN number with them, so they were able to go pull the trust up on the Secretary of State website because they actually had it recorded with the Secretary of State, and so they were able to basically verify that the trust was, so legit, like it's not a sham trust, right? And to me, I thought that was rather interesting because I was like, okay, so that's actually a reason why you might do something like that, right? Because like you said, I hadn't really seen where that would make a difference, but then it made sense. Like, damn, it's no different than really registering a trust in like Wyoming or Delaware or Massachusetts or whatever, these states that are trust friendly. So that, because that basically you're still on their Secretary of State, even though it's unincorporated, it's still recorded with them. And even though it doesn't show who the owner is, and it keeps the private information, is still on the registration website, so you can actually see that it's a legitimate trust, and the Secretary of State stamped your shit. So now you got standing, and you can actually use that in court and everything else. So I think that would be the only reason, But like you said, it would only be for like I said, like a living revocable, not with your like private trust. Like you said, it doesn't. That's pretty much offshore.
yeah, like the business trust stuff.
Yeah,
Business
trust stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I was
And
saying.
like I said, there's reasons to use that. You know what I'm saying? But I personally, I'm gonna just go get the notary and get it authenticated. You know what I'm saying? And then like all the business trust stuff and all of that's cool. Like using it in that manner, I would say, yeah. But I would even look at doing it a different way if I had a group of people that I trusted. You know what I'm saying? Like my family or whatever, and we were going to do a business. I wouldn't want to have that on the record unless something went wrong or I needed to do it. But for like, your business trust and stuff like that, that's cool to run that. If you got an SPV that you're using and you want to make sure everybody's on the up and up, still kind of gives you a veil of privacy, but it can be verified.
So even when it comes to insurance and stuff, it's not necessary to have those trusts registered, or I'm sorry, I keep saying registered, recorded, like with the county or with the Secretary of State and things of that nature. Okay.
Nope.
Because I was thinking, like, like for instance, if you're trying to go open up a bank account under that business trust, I guess if they could find it and pull it up on the Secretary of State website, that would actually work in your favor too. Those type of instances, just the same way they would if you were going to open up a regular business account and they ask you for your articles of incorporation or whatever the case is. Because when I ask my people, would you get something back, from the Secretary of State? They stamped it and they attach a document or something to it. It sounds something like similar to authentication, but it's not technically authentication. But it's just something verifying that they basically vouching and verifying that they acknowledge your trust, you know what I'm saying, as being legitimate or having some standing or whatever. So I just wanted to know what your opinion about that was, because I hear people's discrepancies on that.
And then to get into the bank account thing, the trust bank accounts are the easiest thing to open up. If they're asking you for more than your certification of trust, which you should have, and they're leave, that's not the right bank for you. All of that
is that with regular depository institutions like doing a revocable living trust, or is that with like wealth management accounts as well?
Anyone. Nobody needs to see your declaration of trust and how your trust works. They just need to know who's the grantor, who's the grantee, and who the beneficiaries are, and who the successor trustees are going to be. That's it. That's all the information in it.
I thought Charles Schwab and Fidelity and stuff like that, if you're opening up like a wealth management account or certain types of trust accounts that require you to have maybe like a minimum of 100,000, they want to see your trust, because like I said, you might have to appoint a broker or something like that, limited power of attorney to be able to transact your security.
It might be in the house. No, I got a trust account with Fidelity.
Okay. Did you do that online or did you have to go in physically?
I did mine. I went in physically a long time ago.
Okay.
So you can do it online now, but nobody needs to see that. That's private.
Okay.
So if they're asking you for more than your certification of trust, then go do business somewhere else. Okay. And they have some banks that are doing that, and people are complying with it.
Yeah, for sure. They definitely are, because I know some people that's taking their whole trust, of course, thinking that, that it's necessary because of the type of trust structure that they're setting up. But I only thought that maybe they would have to see that because they need to know how certain things are operating in trust, not necessarily seeing your schedules and stuff like that, not your assets and things. But then again, I guess they have to try to see your assets if they're going to be managing them. So I guess I just assumed that was based on whatever kind of, it might be necessary depending on what kind of trust you're opening up. Like I'm opening up, just regular revocable living trust that, just like a regular depository institution, Truist Bank of America, no problem, certificate of trust, But I did take my power of attorney in there with it because I just wanted to have that attached. But I didn't have no problem.
And then you can get right online if you're thinking about doing a business with a bank and look up what the rules are. And you'll be surprised that they don't even know of what they require to open the account before you go in.
Yeah, for sure. The manager at Bank of America, we were both learning together. She didn't really know what, we like, well, I never did it before. You know what I'm saying? That's what basically she told me. So we, both kind of went through there. She was showing me some of the things because I was asking her about getting a medallion stamp for certain type of financial instruments, and she was, kind of turned the computer around and showed me some of the things that some type of instruments that you can have medallion stamp and stuff like that. But Yeah, so that was I'm glad we touched base on that, because that's another thing too that people I think get kind of overwhelmed about. Like this, even though it seems simple to some of us, it seems overwhelming to some of the people, and sometimes they get stuck with that. Like, how do I open up a bank account? Do I register my certificate of trust? Do I have to give them all my trust documents at the bank? So I'm glad that you actually mentioned that, because that'll probably ease some kind of stress and anxiety with some people that are kind of wondering about that. Now, when we were talking about delegations, are you delegating someone to build trust for you? Are you building your own trust? Is it any time or any type of trust that you might need to get, or you would suggest getting somebody else to do?
Yeah, depending on what the structure is and how what's the word I'm looking for? How complicated the structure is, I'll say it like that. You might want to employ somebody else, like an attorney, to set it up. Or if you want to be private, like Kat say, and you don't want to use your social or have your name on it, then you can go hire an attorney or hire a general member of the public to set everything up and sign it over to you. And now your name's not on anything. They can go get the EIN number for you and all of that. So that saves a lot of the stuff that people are scared about their information being exposed. And where I hold all my stuff is set up. My name has never been on any of that.
And that would be a non-grantor's trust, wouldn't it?
I just call it a trust. They got different names for it.
I think from what I read, like a grantor's trust would be me in my natural capacity being the grantor. But if I'm not the grantor, say it's an entity or another type of structure that's the grantor, it would be a non-grantor because it's not an individual. So that sounds like what you're talking about, which is an option too. But it does come with different tax obligations and liabilities. So that's something that people need to look into if they decide to do it that way. Now, let me ask you this before we're gonna get ready to wrap it up. I got a couple of questions I'm gonna fire off shortly, but I wanted to get your just kind of summary on your opinion. What does trust administration look like to you, and what does that encompass? Like, and the reason I'm asking that is because I know a lot of people get trust documents, and then they're like sitting on their desk, or they're somewhere collecting dust. They're not using them. They don't even know that they're supposed to be actually operating the trust or managing the trust. So what is like trust administration, and operations kind of look like to you?
It looks like a business. It's just private. You still have to have minutes when you're doing stuff, or you're allocating money, or you're doing anything else. You have to keep a record or a log of that in your trust. When you're opening up a bank account, when you're buying a car, like, you need to have some minutes on that inside of your trust, and the reason why, and it needs to be approved by the trustee, whoever that is. You got to administer it just like any business that you would do. Just like you have corporate minutes and you have meetings, and you do the same thing under your trust, and that's how you administer it. So learning business actually teaches you how to manage the trust, but it's in a different structure with different implications and all of that stuff. Preferably more private than public, but you still have to have records for your trust, because if you get pulled into court or something does happen, your trust may have to step forward, and you're going to have records. So just keep that in mind, that just because you got a trust on me, you might not ever have to go to court. You probably would want your lawyer involved in all of that stuff. That's why I talked about the general counsel. It's good to have a good attorney around, so that you don't have to do all of that stuff and be sitting up. Not that you shouldn't be studying if you got a case or anything, but somebody else is handling it. But you need to be abreast of what's going on as well, as if you were handling the case yourself.
Okay, so, and that's another thing too. We didn't really get into it, but expressing trust in court cases. Do you feel like that's something that could actually provide a certain level of protection when it comes to legal situations?
Absolutely. I got insurance on my trust too. The same way that I was talking about the business stuff. If my trust gets sued, I'm not going to court.
So every entity, no matter what it is, every entity should have insurance, no matter what it is. You need insurance on all of those entities. Okay.
That's how you stay out of court.
Okay.
You might have to come to a deposition, but you're not the one that's going to be in court. Your attorney's going to handle that. They'll sit you down and drill you maybe for a day or two. That's that. But you already got paid. You're down the street.
Right. That's the most important thing. Okay, so let me ask you.
That's the important part.
That's the most important part, because you want to get on with the business, right? You got other stuff to do. What financial strategy should small business owners prioritize early on in the business?
I would prioritize structure and making sure you're not commingling funds. That's a big one we get stuck on. So, like, if you're going to you need money from the business, you need to be cutting yourself a check, and you got to figure out how you're going to do that. You might have to do it in your social, but that to start out with. But you want to be operating properly and not commingling funds, because that's the first thing that they're going to attack. If anything happens, you're going to lose all your corporate and private protection if you're actually commingling funds. So it kind of defeats the purpose of you setting all this stuff up to not be liable for anything, and you're creating a liability for yourself. So that would be the.
So what are some of the things that people can, let's just say, either books or topics that people can study to enhance their knowledge or understanding about structure and commingling and contracting when it comes to trust?
I would study any kind of trust topics, but I would say study asset protection and asset management. And it's all, you can Google that and put it in chat. That's another thing. Y'all need to start using ChatGPT. It's not, you got to double check it. You got to go read it, but ChatGPT and this AI stuff, it really is a study tool that will help you get to where you need to go faster. And you can even ask chat that, you can prompt it, and it'll give you the books that you need to read if you want to specific that. And there's a ton of them out there. The first book that I read and it's a classic. I was 16, was Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was one of the first books that I read. that kind of woke me up to what was going on. He talks about a little bit of it in there. And then from there, I studied the real estate stuff, like the Mylans. They all talk about asset protection. That's what all of this game is. Asset protection and asset management are the two subjects that I would tell people to start with.
And when it comes to like bookkeeping and even administration, I'm assuming like maybe some type of small business administration or management course as well. Because that's where I learned more about office procedures and administration. I took small business management and entrepreneurship in college, so I would definitely suggest that, because if I hadn't taken those classes, I probably wouldn't be as business minded, and structured as I am today. Even with learning like private administration, I think it's hard for a lot of people because they don't have basic business knowledge. You know what I'm saying, about just how to operate a business. A lot of people are just used to being employed and things like that. They're not necessarily used to being a hustler or entrepreneur or working for themselves. So it's a whole different arena, because not only are you kind of working for your own business, but you're kind of hiring yourself and you're responsible for your paycheck too. So it's a lot of stuff that you have to kind of, like you said, figure out and structure how to keep yourself separate from the business. And that could be a task in itself, because just starting out, if you don't even realize that you're a business and then the business is a business and that's two different entities, that could definitely be kind of confusing. That's why I think a lot of people they definitely wouldn't pass the court test. Even me, some of my earlier structures,
I've been there.
I had to go back and redo some stuff. I was like, oh hell no! I set up a C corp like it was an LLC because I didn't know anything. I didn't know any better. So I'm the CEO, the CFO, the COO, the secretary, the registered agent. All the liability on me. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, once I learned that, I was like, oh no, I got to just cease all activity and go back and restructure that thing.
And I know it's unpopular, but they got a ton of free stuff and resources from the government right in your local city. You can go right down to the Chamber of Commerce. They got classes that they give. They got all kind of business resources through the government where you can sign up and they'll walk you through exactly how to run basic business. And I think that a lot of people shy away from that because they're anti-government. But man, use these resources.
Yeah. And that's definitely anything free. Like, if you're not going to take advantage of the free stuff, don't even worry about paying money. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the best advice I can give anybody, because there is so many free resources out here that people are just not taking advantage of. Tax preparation courses, bookkeeping courses, even business administration courses. There's a lot of free stuff. Matter of fact, for those of y'all who don't know, you have ChatGPT and you do have the paid version. You can even go in ChatGPT in a specialized GPT section where type in like whatever you want to learn. They have a lot of tutorials and modules and stuff like that. You'd be surprised. You can type in all kinds of subjects, because I've done it before myself. Okay, so what separates financially disciplined entrepreneurs from those who struggle?
Consistency and structure. Like, I've been there when you first start out. You don't know all of it. We weren't taught. I didn't learn all of this stuff inside of my house necessarily as much as I've learned outside of my house. But I got the direction. But you're disciplined, like not going to take $100 out of your business account for personal use. That being that discipline, even though you got it. You know what I'm saying? Learning how to actually start using your expense accounts and stuff and setting that up for yourself when you're doing business. As a notary, you're doing business 24 hours a day. It's all a write-off. I'm always on notary duty. Yeah. Anytime I stop, I get a soda, a taco. That's all. You know what I'm saying?
Snacks, gas, mileage. Yeah.
You just got to set it up to write it off.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that was my next question. How can business insurance and bondings be leveraged strategically rather than being viewed as an expense? Or if it is viewed as an expense, how to leverage that as an expense as well?
Just write it off.
Unless you're going to get into that. When you say write it off, kind of explain what you mean by just write it off. You mean like buy it and then is that like getting your tax preparer to do the taxes and include that?
Yeah, your premium is your premium is a write-off. Anything that any business expense is a write-off. What it is we're terrible at keeping track of it. This $50-$90 here, $15, $20, $100 here. Hey, that adds up over the year. Right. And anything that you're doing that's an expense for your business, even though you're in your personal capacity working for the business, is a write-off. So the insurance, that $91, $100, $200, that's a write-off. The money you spent to buy the debt, that's a write-off. It's all a write-off. So you just that's why I say get a good CPA or a good bookkeeper and a CPA, really, and make sure that you're logging all how your money is moving, because you get that back. You get tax credits for that. And then you can carry those tax credits over when you took a loss to the next year. You can carry those forward. So you should never be paying taxes. And that's what I was going to ask you. If your expenses is higher than your tax obligation, the credits that are left over, what does that look like for a person? Does that stay on their transcripts? Can they actually receive a refund back from that, or do they just use it to offset other obligations in the future? See, that's where it gets to how your tax structure is set up. And this is not financial or legal advice. So it gets to how your tax structure is set up. That's where I talk about the debt. That's why you want to always have that around. But you can carry those credits forward because you're always going to be taking a loss. So like, say you were paying yourself a certain amount of money, well, whatever those tax credits that whatever credits that you're getting from the government that you're supposed to get, they don't get deducted. You get the whole thing. So if you were supposed to get $20,000 back on your taxes, then you get the whole 20. Right. And you carry the other tax credits forward. It offsets. That makes sense. And if you're just a small business starting out,
you may not have a high tax obligation because you don't spend all your money with starting a business out. So you would maybe have more credits to carry over anyway, regardless. So okay.
Exactly. Especially in a flow through taxation type situation for your if you're doing an S corp or LLC, that will benefit you tremendously.
And that's what I was going to say. That'll come in handy. Like, say, for instance, you get into government contracts and then they ask you for your last 2 years of transcripts. And then you have your transcripts now because you filed your taxes, whether you have those credits up there or not. I'm assuming that may make you look more fundable because you actually have business credits on your tax transcripts. And they know what those mean when they see those on your transcripts. Okay, so one last question. Does insurance coverage need to be adjusted when operating in multiple states as the same business or as a franchise? Or enterprise, I'm sorry.
That would be a question. I don't know enough about like actual state to state policy. I would make sure I get myself a good insurance person and just let them know what you got going on and how you want to structure, and then read your policy to make sure it's up to par. And if you don't understand something, just don't let it go. Call, ask them a question. You pay these people. I'll be on the phone. I'll call you. Hey, it's me. Got a question.
I think that's a good point too. I'm glad you pulled that up because a lot of people have so many questions and they want to ask, people on TikTok and stuff like that. But I do the same thing. I'm like, hey, these people get paid some of them get paid just to answer questions. So definitely call and make them earn that paycheck. Don't be scared to pick up the phone when you need clarity. I think the best person to ask is the business that the service that you're trying to acquire about what they do and their policies and how they operate. So, and a lot of people I know they get nervous about asking questions like that. I'm going to actually probably be. I don't know. I have a lot of conversations with with companies that I've called businesses, just to get information. I have a Telegram group. It's just a community resource group. It's not like an engagement group or anything like that. But I think I'm going to probably drop some of those recordings in there so that people can hear them. Because when people hear the conversations, they get more comfortable and confident about how to actually have these conversations with some of these people, at the IRS, at the Secretary of State, with brokers, things like that. So just having like those, especially when it comes to the financial, like that banking, that's a whole nother language. You can't call them talking about coupons and monthly bills and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So you definitely need to have the lingo together. And because I've had some of those conversations, I think that I'm a little bit more confident, you know what I'm saying? Because even before having those conversations, I wasn't as confident, but I always go back and listen to the conversations after I record them to freshen up on what was said. Sometimes I miss things that they said. And a lot of times they will give you information about questions you weren't even really trying to get the answer to and give you a lot of gems. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I found is very helpful with calling some of these people and reaching out and just asking the simplest questions, So I'm glad you mentioned that. That's great advice for the people that are listening in today. So that about wraps it up with the questions that I have for you. I think that we covered enough today. I think we're going to have to come back and do a round two because we didn't even get into the international, business, But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get with you on the credit cleaning part, right? I'm going to work on that. And then I think what I'll do is probably have you back after I get some results with that so I can come back and actually just give people, my experience and what I was able to do with it and how I was able to leverage because I'm trying to get some of the consumer violation checks so I can free up some of this space because, baby, I'm a one-woman show over here and I need me a team. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to have my feet kicked up out there in Cali like you.
It's cold and rainy out here right now.
Oh, it's cold and rainy out there. Oh, it's hot out here. We in the South. We good. That little cold froze some blew over. It's definitely pretty warm now. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm so thankful that you agreed to join me, agreed to be interviewed, give the people, the information, the sauce. Give us your social media handles. Let us know where they can find you, websites, events you got coming up. Give us a little rundown on Tobias's enterprise and how we can get in contact with you or how the people can find you if they're looking for you or they just want to view some of your content.
You can go on YouTube. It's Nomadic Elevation. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. It's the same thing. Nomadic Elevation. It should pop up. You'll see the logo. And I do have some events coming up, but I don't want to let that out just yet. Okay, so like I said, I'm getting the group together, and then I'll start talking more about that and let everybody know when we get it set up. I am setting up a study group. We are going to filter. I don't want to hear any of your $87 billion stories with no proof. We're going to get people that have proof of whatever they did at work, and I want to get those minds in a study group so we can start sharing information with each other. And you are going to have to sign the NDA to get into the group, and it's not going to be just a free-for-all. So it's going to be kind of structured. So as soon as I separate everything, I'll talk more about that. But you can get me on Telegram too under Nomadic Elevation. It's all the same across the board. I need to do more on YouTube, but I've just been busy with life, and I coach. So like football season is real hard for me because I coach 3 different teams. I'm kind of more at the age of giving back to my community. So I don't know if any of my football coaches out there, how it gets. I get up at 6 and I don't get home till 9 every night. Ooh. So
you got a busy schedule. Also, what I decided, I think I'm gonna do if it's okay with the interviewees that I have on the MobCorp execs website, I'm going to do a page where I post everybody's links to their websites and social media. So that way people who are maybe seeing the interview later or they don't know how to actually find you or they may have some trouble just navigating through social media. If they can't find your website, they can always come to ours, and all the interviewees that we have done, we'll have the information up there so they can easily get to you. So that'll be something that we have coming too. We have not had the page, don't have the page up yet, but we will be getting that up shortly. And so TikTok, are you on IG? Are you on Facebook?
No. I need to set up a separate Facebook for that. I have a Facebook account, but I lost the password and I got frustrated. They sent me through the whole thing. I'm gonna just set up a whole new one.
Okay. All right, cool. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much. Hopefully y'all got the information that y'all need. when you see this, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. We'll try to see if we can get them answered. We'll get Tobias back on for another follow-up. And thank you once again for your time and your energy. And you have a blissful, prosperous rest of your nights. And
you too.
talk to you
And
again
I
soon.
appreciate you. Thanks
All
for
right.
inviting me to speak.
Absolutely. Ashe, ashe, ashe.
All right. Peace and blessings.
All right. Peace.